Welcome into the I-80 Boys College Football Show. As always, I'm Christian Hunt, and that guy right down there, that old geriatric Walker-looking motherfucker is...
That would be Chris Vaca. Obviously, Christian is a little on edge this morning. The guy's won 29 games in a row. He's a little nervous about Bama today, I think, the last team to beat Georgia. But Christian, last night there was a hell of a football game. And more. I mean, we got to watch that game twice this year. What were your thoughts last night on Oregon and Washington?
Well, Chris, I thought, here's the thing, right? We were texting about the game, I think, back and forth there. And the biggest thing that I saw from that game was, you said it best, right? I think Oregon was getting blown off the ball by Washington on both sides of the game very early on, right? Washington came prepared. Yeah. I also thought, Oregon had some chances early in that game. In the first two drives, they went 3 and out both times. Nix looked a little off. The receivers were dropping passes. I mean, it just looked very rough. Like, Oregon looked like the moment was just a little too bright for them, almost, if I could say that. And they literally, you blink and you're down 14-3 in that game. And they climbed out of it. They got back on top of them, and then they just folded down the stretch like the Falcons did in the Super Bowl a couple years ago and gave that lead right up on them.
Yeah, no, I agree. It was kind of funny, like you mentioned, like if this game would have been played, and if Oregon would have played the first half like they did the second, they would have won. Like, they come out of the gate after halftime, right before halftime, that touchdown. I remember I texted you. I said this drive is huge with like a minute 40 marched all the way down the field, but you could tell Washington had a chip on their shoulder, and I don't blame them, right? All week they're hearing we're 10-point underdogs to a team that we fucking beat. You're right. They came out pissed off. Like, I mean, they did. They were hitting on all cylinders in that first half for the most part. I will say this: hats off to Washington. They're going to be a tough out in the playoffs. They're definitely in. I know there's a scenario people are trying to tell me that Washington is. They're getting in. They've never. I mean, you're 13-0. You beat a couple top-ranked Oregon, or they beat a couple top 15 teams this year. Washington's done everything they needed to do. Like I said, hats off to Washington. That was a hell of a football game last night. I'll be excited to see who they kind of match up in the playoffs with after today.
Yeah, I agree with you, Chris. I mean, they're probably going to move up, I would say, right? They're not going to more than likely end up finishing as the number 4 team going into this, so they'll probably move up to, dare I even say, second or third. Somewhere in there, depending on what happens today. Obviously, if Georgia and Michigan win, then they'll probably end up at third. If not, then we'll see what happens, kind of going from there. But, yeah, hats off to Washington. Washington all year, especially ever since that Oregon game, looked like a completely different team. I thought coming into this, and you could say the same thing about Oregon. Oregon looked like a completely different team heading into that game. And just like that, the momentum, everything switched. And Washington got their mojo back, probably at the most critical time of the year, I felt like. Chris, you had said something too, and I think it's worth mentioning. Like, it wasn't like, you could tell Washington obviously is they're a good team. They're a very good team. They have some explosive pieces, right? But they weren't like overly impressive to you so much as it was just Oregon looked like they imploded at the wrong time last night, right?
Yes, and I know that's going to piss off the Husky fans, and that's fine if it does. But my opinion, and like I said, I know people. Well, Chris, you've been high on Oregon all year. Oregon to me was the better football team. I think that they're more explosive. They were more balanced. Washington at times last night, they did what they needed to do to win that game. But Oregon, like for example, Michael Penix throws that interception. Christian, remember that? What's Bo Nix do on the next series? Throws a terrible pick on the run, tries to force something. It just looked like to me like Oregon just kind of beat themselves in that game. And like I said, I don't want to piss off the Washington people. That's not the point here. But yeah. I still, it's going to sound crazy, I still think Oregon's a better football team. I know they lost twice this year, but Oregon to me has, if you want to knock off I think they would pose more of a threat to Georgia. They would have posed more of a threat to like Michigan than Washington would have. And like I said, please don't take that the wrong way. Washington deserves to be in the playoffs. They're going to get their shot. They're a pretty senior-laden team, and they're a good football team. They really are. Kalen DeBoer, by the way, hell of a job this year, 13-0. When he took over that program, I know they weren't very good a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I just remember saying something right as the season was or the off season was getting ready to wrap. I think somebody on this show picked Washington to win the Pac-12,
That would have been you.
And I really just did it to appease one of our subscribers,
Daniel.
I wanted to make him happy, and I don't think even in my wildest dreams I even would have thought they would have done it. I thought they'd have probably slipped somewhere, and but they did it, man. Shout out to them. They went undefeated this year, up in in the regular season in the Pac-12 championship, and they're Pac-12 champions. So they gotta take it to the next level, I think. And look, dude, TCU won last year. We see what Michigan does. If they end up getting matched up, let's say against Michigan, that might be the best thing for them. I mean, honestly, just because Michigan's one of those teams that we've seen once they get in a big game like the playoffs, they just fold almost. It's weird. So. It'll be weird to see what kind of happens in the playoffs, and I'm here for it.
Yeah, Christian, I want to ask you a question real quick. Hypothetically, I think we all agree Michigan's going to beat Iowa today.
Yeah.
And let's say Georgia does win. So Georgia will stay 1, Michigan probably 2, Washington will be 3. If Michigan does play Washington, I think this is an intriguing matchup. Do you give Washington a chance in that game? And before you answer, I want to say I do, strictly because what happens if Washington can score points in bunches? Could Michigan, and this is going to feed in my whole JJ McCarthy thing here in a second after you give your answer, but we haven't seen Michigan down. You know what I mean? And Washington's kind of scary because they have some really good wide receivers. I just think that game would be really good because it's two conflicting styles of play, and I think it'd be fun to watch for any college football fan.
Well, I think the money would very similarly be obviously placed on Michigan, right? Kind of like last year against TCU, right? I mean, last year TCU didn't have like an overly explosive defense or anything like that. They were good on defense, I thought, at times. But they were a Big 12 style of school. They wanted to just be very explosive and throw the ball up all over the yard to Quentin Johnson, the number 1 draft pick of the
Chargers, yeah.
For the Chargers. If you got him in fantasy, RIP. But I don't know, man. I think looking at Washington, I just feel like the key to beating a team like Michigan is you have to be really explosive on offense, right? You can we're gonna get a chance to see them today play the inverse of Washington, a team that is defined by their defense and has a terrible offense, right? And I don't think it's going to be particularly close against Iowa. But I think if you flip it on its axis a little bit, if you're a little, I'm not going to say suspect, but if you give up points, let's say like Washington can at times on defense, but you can also score 20, 30 points, you can put up 30 some odd, 40 some odd points in a game like Washington can. Chris, I think that's very favorable for Washington. I would probably lean a little more with Washington in that hypothetical scenario game that could happen, obviously. So we'll see.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to. It's just, to me, it's like a really interesting matchup. Washington does go to the Big Ten next year, so it'd be kind of cool to see just with this year because Washington is loaded. I mean, Roma Duze, Penix, this is their last year there. They're running back. I mean, Washington, like you said, is a very explosive team. Michigan really hasn't played anybody super explosive this year. You know what I mean? They haven't. Ohio State, I know, is a good football team, but they're not really led by their offense. It's more their defense this year. So it would be interesting to see, but we'll talk about that later. Like I said, a lot of football left to be played today. I'll kick it back over to you, Christian, here.
Yeah. Excuse me. Oh, I'm too excited about it here. Yeah, looking at some of the headlines here, Quinn Ewers looking like he might be coming back to Texas. Sources, it's basically means nothing. It basically is just like saying Quinn Ewers looks like he's going to play today against Oklahoma State because he put on shoulder pads, right? Well, no shit. You know what I mean? I think we probably could have done that. We could be sources, Chris, for ESPN. So we'll see if he comes back. I mean, that's something I've kind of been on for a minute. I think there's too many good quarterbacks in this year's class. I think he waits next year, becomes more of that guy, puts out a little bit more work, and then he'll probably help his draft status there.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to add to that. No, Ewers going to play, and I think he does now. I kind of changed my mind on that. I think he does come back. There is a lot of good kids going to the draft in this class. This might be one of the most loaded QB classes ever. Probably be good for Texas to keep him if he can stay there another year. And you're going in the SEC next year and see how Quinn Ewers does against some of those defenses over there in the SEC.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, dude. Like you said, no matter what, to just see how all that pans out for Texas. You know, they've got 3 quarterbacks on their roster. Ooh. I got a feeling that they might be able to keep 2 of them.
Yeah, one of those guys is going to be leaving. They have to.
Yeah, I have a very weird feeling that it'll probably end up being Malik Murphy.
I do too, man. And me and you are pretty high on him, so it'd be kind of interesting to see if what all plays out with Texas here after the season's done. But again, Texas. Speaking of Texas, they got a big game today. If they can win that one, Christian, they need a loss out of somebody, because I think if Florida State wins, Texas is going to end up being left out if Georgia wins and Michigan wins. You know what I mean? And it's got to suck, but they should have probably beat Oklahoma this year too, though.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, they just have to win this game and then hope some things kind of bounce in their favor pretty much. That's all you can do. And, we'll see. I mean, we'll just see what happens with it today as far as that's concerned. I mean, they're playing the Cowboys of Oklahoma State here pretty soon, so it'll get pretty fun, Chris. I'm excited for today. Absolutely. It's not like it is normally where you got all the, I hate to say it, you got all the fluff games going on in the backdrop, and you have to pick and choose which games you watch. It's just 4 or 5 really, really good games today, and I'm excited for it here.
Yeah, it should be good.
Florida State backup quarterback Tate Rodemaker is in doubt for this game. He banged his head up against Florida last week. They checked him out. He was fine. Let him play. I think on Sunday he woke up. He was starting to have some concussion-like symptoms, is what they were saying, and basically they've pretty much held him out, for a vast majority of the week here. So his status for the game tonight is in doubt. Even with him not practicing, I feel like all week, Chris, as they've said, that's got to be. That has to be pretty detrimental either way, right, for Florida State, I would say?
Yeah, me. I mean, I've been high on Florida State all year. I don't even know who the third-string kid is. But if he doesn't play, Christian, I mean, I know you took Louisville. I took Florida State in this game. I think we both agreed this game is going to be a really good football game, and it should be really tight via what some people in our comment section don't want to believe us. But neither here nor there. I'm worried if he doesn't play. I mean, there were people this year saying that Rodemaker was better than Jordan Travis. So there are some Florida State fans out there that thought that, just talent-wise. You know what I mean? But I don't know, man. If he doesn't play, dude, that's got to be tough. Now, the line has not moved from 1.5 or 2 right now, so it'll be interesting. I'm assuming this is a game-time decision for this kid.
Yeah, I picked Louisville to obviously win this game even before this whole thing started to kind of come about, but I'm still sticking with that pick, right? I mean, Rodemaker's been in the program for a couple years, but the thing is, you still need to practice, right? Like, it's not like Joe Flacco coming off the streets for the Cleveland Browns, who's been around football as a 38-year-old man forever, and he could probably coach him if need be.
Hey, I'm 38, easy with the jokes.
You get where I'm going with it, but that's a different thing there, right? This kid, you need to get in, you need to get practice, you need to be a full participant and kind of go through game time speed. That's how you come out and start having a bad half or whatever have you. And against a team like Louisville, if you come out and have a bad half and you struggle to move the ball and you keep giving it to their offense, I don't care how good your defense is, you're just giving them more opportunities to score on you. And like we said, when I had said, I think I predicted that Louisville would probably score in the 30s. That's the path to how it happens.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It'll be interesting. I said this game today. I think the Michigan-Iowa game. I don't want to say boring, but we kind of know who's going to win that one. I really think this ACC title game is going to be a good football game. I think that's tonight too. I think that's the last one, but that should be a really, really good football game. Louisville. They, like you said, I see why you're taking. There's a lot of sharps out there taking Louisville today. A lot of it is, man, they have nothing to lose, right? Nothing would make them happier than to knock off undefeated Florida State and take them out of the playoffs. So, it just sucks because I do wish Jordan Travis was playing, man. I think most Florida State fans would agree. Florida State's a fun team to watch, especially with those wide receivers. And if Rodemaker does play today, I'll say it again. He needs to get the ball out to those guys, dude. I mean, you got Johnny Wilson out there at 6'7", dude. There ain't a corner in the world that can cover that kid. And then we all know what Keon Coleman can do. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, like you said, Chris, how all that pans out. We'll kind of touch on a couple more things real quick here. Lynn, I think it's DeAnton. I think that's how you say his name? Yeah, DeAnton. Okay, Lynn. This is Anthony Lynn's son, by the way. He was UCLA's defensive coordinator. Now, coming into the year, I'll be honest, I wasn't really high on this guy because I thought he's never been a defensive coordinator before. He was in the NFL as like an assistant coach out there in the NFL. He's coming to UCLA. He's a first-time coordinator. UCLA was losing a lot of pieces, and he did a really good job, I think, this year at getting UCLA's defense kind of locked back in and keeping them, strung together. So hats off to him. But USC basically just hired this guy to be their defensive coordinator, which is kind of terrifying if you don't like USC.
You know my thoughts about Lincoln Riley. We talk about him all the time. I hope this isn't a death wish for this kid, man, because it's a philosophy thing over there with Lincoln Riley. And this has not been 1 or 2 years of bad defenses on Lincoln Riley teams. This has been going on for 8 straight goddamn years now. Ask the Oklahoma man about it.
You could make that same argument, though, almost to a degree, right, about Chip Kelly, right? I mean, there was times where Chip Kelly was more known, I think, for his offenses.
Oregon.
Just like the Mariotas and the NFL with the Eagles there, that 7 seconds or less style of offense that they wanted to kind of implement. And then he went to San Francisco and all that stuff. But, I agree. I agree with you, Chris. I think this, to me, I like the hire for USC. I think this is a move away from what they typically do. They went out and they get a kid from one of their rivals, or not a kid, but they go out and get this defensive coordinator from one of their rivals who's basically proven in a very short vacuum sealed instance he can be successful. And I think that USC has way more talent than UCLA does, especially on the defensive side of the ball. So I think he's going to get them right. I think this is a great hire as they get ready to get into the Big Ten.
Do you think? And I mean, exactly. You said it, and that's what I wanted to touch on. I think UCLA. USC will fit. The defense won't be as bad because they're going to be playing a lot of shitty offenses in the Big Ten, coming forward. Not harping on the Iowa, Nebraskas of the world, but it's a little bit different style in the Big Ten than it is over in the Pac-12, right? I mean, offenses in the Pac-12 are insanely good. Offenses in the Big Ten, especially the West, I know there's no divisions next year, is grade A garbage. I think this will help USC out, though. I think it is a good hire. I have to give him props for addressing it. I don't think Lincoln Riley could go another season without addressing it after getting rid of Grinch. You know what I mean? That was just a joke this year. USC went 7-5 this year. This was a team a lot of people thought should have been in the playoffs.
Well, I think once they lost that first game, dude, I mean, I think it was just a mentality. They lost all their confidence. They lost all their swagger. They're like Lincoln Riley-led teams. They're all about confidence and swagger. You know what I mean? And once they get in the playoffs, they get punched in the mouth, they fold. And we see it every year. There's at least one game a year where they lose in shootout fashion. This year, they lost that edge. And once they lost it, I mean, it was pretty tough to get it back. So, USC, they're going to have to figure a lot of stuff out there. I mean, they got some talent. We obviously know that. Yeah. But they're going to have to get it figured out. And I think it was a good hire by them to get this defensive coordinator there. Mike says, I'm betting Nix doesn't even play in the bowl game. Yeah, I probably wouldn't if I was him.
Nothing to play for, man. Hate to say that. I hate seeing guys not play, but he's a top 10 pick.
And that's, to me, I'm good with that. I'm good with, like, if you're going to the league, right? Like last year we saw Bama, I think Will Anderson and Bryce Young played in their bowl game against Kansas State.
Yep.
K-State. And for me, we knew they were going to the league at that point. I guess I look at it from the standpoint of, if you're getting a bunch of guys going to the league or graduating or whatever have you, look, loyalty nowadays doesn't mean jack shit in college sports. So you got to play the young guys, right? It's such a crucial thing to be able to get your young guys experience, because you're not going to have, unless you're a Colorado-based team, you're not going to have a whole roster turnover necessarily. Now, college football is getting that way, but I think really what we're seeing right now for the most part is you're seeing like 10% of college football rosters jump in the portal, but that's the top 10%, or the upper 10 to 20% of college football kids that are chasing the bag. They know, hey, I could go make $1 million, or I could go make $800,000 and go to a more of a mid to major tier program like a Tennessee or like a Nebraska or like a whoever. And they're playing the right thing there, right? I don't blame the kids for doing that. It's a lot of money, especially for being 20-something years old. I'm not ever going to blame a kid for doing that. But as a coach, you also have to figure out a way to keep guys there. You know what I mean? And a good act of solidarity is, if your team makes it to a bowl game, you got to get the young kids reps. You recruit them, now you got to develop them. Part of that is you got to play. Even if you lose the bowl game, I think the practices and the experience of playing in that game against a competitive team in college is still worth it.
No, I agree. And I'll add on that a lot of it too, especially if you're as good as Bo Nix is. There's no need to get hurt. Ask Matt Corral last year at Ole Miss what happens when you play in a bowl game. Tore his ACL, got drafted by the Panthers. He fell super deep into the draft because of that, because it was a pretty bad roster. I mean, the kid, sometimes you don't ever heal completely from those either. So, Bo Nix, no need to play. We know what Bo Nix is. He's got a bright future in the NFL, by the way. He's improved a lot from going from Auburn to Oregon, by the way. He's a good quarterback.
Oh, yeah. Kind of keeping it parked for a second here, Chris. Bobby Petrino goes back to Arkansas to be their offensive coordinator.
So you're the coach there 10 years ago. You're banging a girl on the volleyball team. Then you take her out you get in a motorcycle wreck. And then 10 years later, you're back there again. It blows my mind. Christian, I know you love yourself some Bobby Petrino.
Man, like a thief in the night for what he did to my Falcons. You know what I mean? He became a whole ass meme, Chris. He became a whole ass meme, basically. And second here. Yeah, I mean, pretty much, hey, the guy, this was probably his darkest moment, you know what I mean? But the way he kind of did stuff and left that job in the Falcons, I mean, literally just dipped out in the middle of the night, left everybody a note in their locker that was copied and pasted. He went to Louisville, I think it was, right? And was successful there, parlayed that, went to Arkansas, and then basically all this shit happened and his career was kind of mucked up a little bit. And then he ended up back at Texas A&M, or he ended up at Texas A&M, was their offensive coordinator. I thought he did a decent job there, right, with what he had. Offense looked a lot better this year.
Yeah, you would say he is a good offensive mind, though. I mean, he's proven that wherever he's really been. I get why they're bringing him back. I get it. I mean, the guy's been doing it for a long time, Christian. So as much as I like to make fun of him, I know I bring it up because I know you can't stand the guy. But it's like you bringing up Saban and my Dolphins. So it's all good.
No, I think it's how do KJ Jefferson, with that being said, he's in the portal right now too. So you got KJ Jefferson in the portal, but you bring in Bobby Petrino. I mean, what are your thoughts on that, right? I mean, just
would you say KJ Jefferson's had a really bad year this year? I mean, for what we thought he was from the previous years. I mean, you know what I mean? I mean, Arkansas failed this year. I mean, we thought we were pretty high on Arkansas to start the season, Christian.
Was it really KJ Jefferson or was it the team around him? I mean, it was basically their offense was KJ Jefferson, Raheem Sanders.
Yeah.
And then the offensive line, which is Sam Pittman's foray, I thought they didn't look as good as in years past. The defense, at times, they held Alabama, I think, to a certain amount, but
that was their best game.
They just looked flat. There was something that looked off to me. Like statistically, they were better, this year than they were last year, I felt like, on defense, right? Because they were pretty bad last year. But they had more talent, that ended up going off to the league. But I don't know, man. I think, to me, Arkansas is one of those teams that, like, every offseason, just because I like Sam Pittman, I feel like I could see them doing some stuff, right? Losing KJ Jefferson, I think, is a huge blow to them, but they're going to probably end up changing their identity a little bit on offense this year. They're probably going to get away from that Cam Newton style of offense. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I think KJ Jefferson is a phenomenal quarterback. I think he'll end up going somewhere, and he'll look pretty damn good as last year, hopefully for him. But it'll be interesting, man. It'll be interesting to see what Arkansas does with Petrino coming back in there. Are you guys going to take note and bring Frost in to be your offensive coordinator if this doesn't work out with Satterfield?
Man, I knew you had to bring it up. No, I don't think he's even allowed back in the state. Jesus.
No. Man. Well, you probably could have made that same argument about Petrino, right, at Arkansas there for a bit.
That's what's so weird about that. But I will say this, though. Scott Frost will be coaching somewhere next year in college football, whether it's an assistant somewhere or a non-con school. I promise you that. Promise you.
It sounds crazy, and it won't ever happen. But God, I could almost in a way see it. Frost might end up at like Oklahoma or somewhere like that, right? Because Levy left. I wanted to say Iowa because they need an offensive coordinator really bad.
That was getting thrown around a couple weeks ago, and Iowa's like, no.
Well, fuck. Listen, as a head coach, he had a lot of fallacies. I think at at a major program. But I think as an assistant offensive coordinator, you know what I mean, at a program like Iowa, they could do a lot worse.
I agree, but his philosophy on offense doesn't work in the Big Ten. He wants to bring that Pac-12, run and gun, everything out of the shotgun. I couldn't imagine Iowa going shotgun every play, trying to spread you out. I mean, I'm not saying they don't need a little bit of that. I just think he would fit better in like a ACC. Big 12 would fit his. I mean, the way the Big 12 is now with all the points being scored, but I just promise you he'll be an assistant somewhere. You're going to hear him somewhere. I know he's not done coaching. There's just no way. I think we'll hear his name out there again in the future.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we'll see. Like I said, it'll be interesting to see what he ends up doing and going forward with. And it'll be interesting to see. Indiana hires James Madison's coach, the 11-1 James
hire.
Madison Dukes. It was a pretty damn good hire, right?
Yeah, good hire. James Madison had an awesome year this year. This is their first year being D1, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
They're a pretty good program. We were looking at stats on their quarterback too. Holy shit! Good hire for Indiana, man. Indiana, I think this is an A+ hire for Indiana, especially being Indiana, a basketball school.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's a step in the right direction. It shows that they're committed. Indiana. I mean, are they going to go? Like, I know I was hearing like John Gruden being thrown out there for like a day or two, and then immediately that got like tampered on and tamped down there a little bit. I would have loved to see it just because I thought it would have been funny as shit getting a high profile guy like that. But I think this is the best of what you're going to do, right? You go out like. Is it like Hugh Freeze going to Auburn? To me, I think it's like a degree under that. I don't think it's that same level because Auburn in and of itself, I mean, they've done something with football in the last 20 years, and Hugh Freeze has been a relevant coach, I feel as if, at the Power 5 level before, and he's beaten Alabama a couple times. Damn near did it this year. I think to me this is a good hire. I think in a couple years, Indiana might get it. It's sink or swim, right? I mean, it's kind of a gamble in a lot of ways because we don't know if this is going to really 100% pay off for them. But to be fair, their quarterback, who's got almost 4,000 yards and has 40 touchdowns, last year at James Madison, he's in the portal too. So that'll be interesting to see. Here's the thing, right? I want to say this, kind of going into it, because me and Chris were talking before we got on air today. There's a lot of coaches that have jumped ship and gone other places. One of them, and I know you guys have mentioned it in the comment section, you're talking about DJ Uiagalelei going to like Florida State or going to Oregon or something like that. To me, I think his best shot for success would probably be going to Michigan State with his old coach.
I agree. Veteran quarterback. Jonathan Smith, I think, is a very good coach. What he did at Oregon State and his time there, I think, was awesome. And going over to Michigan State, man, Michigan State can recruit. They don't have a problem paying out the ass for players either, or coaches for that matter. I think old DJU would be smart to go there. And you said something really interesting before we got on, Chris. You said he already knows the system. That's huge. Well,
we see it all the time, right? You get a quarterback that's got one last year of eligibility left, right? That comes in and it's so make or break. I mean, it's not that they're not bad, but like if you're going, I feel like to a place like Michigan State, they want success. If you go out and you were to get a guy, you want some familiarity with it. And what better than to go out and get a guy you coached last year that is probably, Jonathan Smith was a quarterback at Oregon State. He's more of an offensive-minded guy, I would say. Mm-hmm. So for me, come in, if you can figure out a way to bring in DJ Uiagalelei to that program, put him in there, then do it. Now, selfishly, DJ might want a shot at trying to play Clemson again this year.
Yeah,
just to get some revenge.
He took a lot of shit from that fan base there, man.
Tyler from Spartanburg probably pissed him off a little bit too. But
he's still better than Kate Klubnik, dude. I don't care what anybody says. That's where I'm at with that one.
I agree with you. I thought everybody that was calling for his head, I was like, well, it could get worse, and they're like, no, it can't. It literally can't, and it kind of did when you lost to Duke to start the year off. But I digress. Right now, Chris, looking at all the quarterbacks in the portal, Dante Moore. Now, this was my thing, right? Dante Moore, let's just hypothetically say, right, won the job pretty much the first game of the year when they played Coastal Carolina. Came in, looked explosive, led the team down the field. It seemed like every time he had the ball, they were scoring against Coastal Carolina. Yeah, true freshman. Was committed to Oregon, flipped to UCLA and Chip Kelly. I thought this was their guy, right? This was the guy. He was better than Garbers. He was better than the Kent State kid they had, that was whatever. And from a prospect standpoint, you let the kid play. You go into this year, he probably is going to lose you some games, right? That if you had the other kids in, they would have won, and we saw that pretty much, right? But you let him make his mistakes, and you go to the Big Ten next year with that, with that under your belt. Instead, they bench him, a little bit halfway through the season there, and he ends up transferring. As soon as they benched him, I think I called you. I said, "This kid's going to fucking transfer."
You did.
There's no way he stays. And sure enough, as soon as the portal came open, jumped right in it. And he's the top guy right now. But right underneath him, and like as a prospect, Dante Moore, by the way, I'll put it this way: if depending on where he goes, he needs to go somewhere where he can develop.
Would you say Oregon, maybe?
Maybe Oregon. I know they got another really highly touted quarterback there.
You're right.
Who's already been in the program and who might even have first ups on it. Maybe a Michigan. I don't know, like a Michigan or like an Ohio State, maybe. Like Ohio State for me, because like Kyle McCord's probably got this year. You go in, you sit down there, you learn. Like it would be a pretty good marriage to me, right? Ohio State might be thinking something completely different, but I don't know. I mean, like I said, it'll be interesting to see what this kid ends up picking and where he chooses to go.
I think we'll both agree he's uber talented, though.
Yeah,
uber talented.
Yeah, he's really talented. I just think, and he may not want to hear it, but long-term success, I think he just needs to go sit a year, get his confidence back in him, learn the offense, right? Just do that. That's all you need to do.
Name. Chat couldn't name 10 quarterbacks that have started as true freshmen, and you know what I mean, that have ever been any good. There's only a few. Trevor Lawrence, I think John Elway back. You know what I mean? There's very few guys that could come in. Peyton Manning, maybe. Like there's very few guys that can at an upper echelon program and be really good as a true freshman. What he did this year was actually impressive. Me and Christian talked about him a lot before the season started. Even now, it's like, man, this kid must be pretty good if Chip Kelly, and Chip Kelly's no slouch. I mean, he knows QBs when he sees them. But you're right, though, Christian. Yeah, somebody's going to get a good quarterback there. I do think he needs to sit behind somebody for a year, and that might be the best thing for him.
Mike says, supposedly DJ and his family are not happy about Smith to Michigan State and the way he handled it. Well,
okay,
could be. I mean, maybe, right? Someone in the corner says, what about Coastal Carolina quarterback coming to Nebraska or Duke quarterback? Duke's quarterback I don't like. Let me say this. I like Riley Leonard as a quarterback at a place that can develop him. So I know Notre Dame's been floated out there a lot. I don't think Notre Dame's going to be the place to develop him, right? They had Sam Hartman this year. I think we can all agree that Sam Hartman, if you take away what he did this year at Notre Dame, which actually wasn't better than what he did the last 4 or 5 years at Wake Forest, but as a quarterback prospect, right, coming out of Wake Forest, I was higher on Sam Hartman than I am right now about Riley Leonard. Kid's a great athlete. He can run really well. He can make a couple throws in a big game that's going to keep you in it. But I don't think Riley Leonard as a quarterback and a passer of the football is at that same level, you know what I mean, is what you're really wanting. He's not going to come in and elevate a program if you get down, you know what I mean, 7, 10, 14 points in a game. Like I'm not confident. He can keep you in a game, but I don't know if he's going to be able to keep you, elevate you to that level you need to be in order to win those games.
Yeah, I'll add to Riley Leonard. I mean, I watched him play a ton this year. That was the problem. I mean, he was banged up this year, so you could throw that in there. But, like, he does run a lot. He almost reminds me of Harburg 2.0. Like, he's a better version. Yeah. He's big. He's physical. I love Riley Leonard. I think he's a hell of a leader. He's a really good kid. He's got a chip on his shoulder. Came out of nowhere, was like a 2 or 3 star recruit out of high school. He reminds me of Max Dugan in a way. Problem is, though, Christian said it, he can't really throw. He would have to – and Nebraska doesn't have those types of weapons yet on the outside. I'm not saying that we don't have guys that maybe could develop into weapons, but he needs to be insulated by a bunch of other things, I think. And I don't think Nebraska, for one, really has that. And I'm with Christian on this too. I don't think Notre Dame, we could talk about this for hours, but Sam Hartman this year, I think should have just stayed at Wake Forest. I mean, he didn't impress me much this year. He looked good against some bad teams like Navy and shit like that, but the big games against Ohio State, Clemson, Louisville. I mean, he didn't do anything for a guy that's was a 6-year senior, Christian.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, he's yeah. I mean, he's been around football. He's played more football than we've forgotten. You know what I mean, as they say. Guys, I would like probably over them would be this Max Brosmer kid. He played at New Hampshire. I'm very, very high on him. I think he's put up numbers, didn't he? He's put up over 3,500 yards and more than 30 touchdowns. Yeah, it was at New Hampshire, right? But to me, I like this kid. I think he's got a little more of what you want. I think he's got a little bit of dual threatness in him as well. Tyler Van Dyke, I don't know so much about that, right?
I got something to say about Tyler Van Dyke. 2 years ago, he was in the Heisman race. That's amazing to me that I know he got benched this year, and I know Miami's been an up and down program, but it'll be interesting to see where he goes because he is talented, but he's another one of those guys that's going to have to fit in the system. Like he's going to have some weapons around him. He's not going to carry you or a team with not a lot of weapons.
There's another guy that I'm not even seeing listed on here. Well, maybe he's a little higher up. Maybe that's why I'm not seeing him. No, he's not. Max Brown. That's another guy out of Florida.
That's the guy I like. The back
maybe maybe Malik Murphy. That's another guy, right?
I like
Cam Ward. I mean, and you said it best, Chris. Cam Ward, I think he came out with a list of like 3 schools that he would transfer to, and Nebraska's on there. So, I think kind of this is the thing I think, right? If you guys could only get 3 positions this year in the transfer portal, which might be very likely, you go out and you get a left tackle, a quarterback, and another wide receiver.
Agreed. You said,
and I think I think that'll keep you guys in the loop there, right? We touched on it, right? Satterfield, I think, is an offensive coordinator, and we've seen what he's done with a quarterback before. I think Spencer Rattler was one of the higher rated guys in the portal when he came to South Carolina. Now South Carolina didn't have a great offensive line. They couldn't run the football. They couldn't really play defense at all, and they're in a much worse position. But with all that being said, I mean, they only ranked 70th in the country, right? That's about as good as Satterfield's been. He was 73rd in the country. So if Satterfield can get Nebraska back into the 70s, which I think is probably about the ceiling for what he's going to do, especially in this conference and looking at how hard they are playing defense in the Big Ten, I think if you can get to 70th, you guys will win 7 or 8 games next year. And that's if you get there. So I'm gonna keep an eye on what Nebraska does kind of here in this offseason and who they end up picking up.
Yeah, it's we've talked about it a lot on this channel. That's for sure. Is the offense has to improve. If they don't, Nebraska's going to be playing on Tuesday and Wednesday nights with the MAC because nobody wants to watch a team that scored. We finished this year with 18 points per game, and that just blows my mind in today's college football. Being a Power 5 school in a big conference, it just isn't going to get it done. The defense obviously has been awesome this year, but yeah, offensively though, it's got to get better than that. You should be able to score 24, 25 points a game. If Nebraska would average 24, 25 points a game on offense this year, which really puts you in the middle of top 2/3 of the country, Nebraska probably wins 8-9 games this year, and that's no shit. It's got to improve. It's got to improve. I think everybody would agree with that. Definitely in the state of Nebraska.
Oh yeah, dude. I agree with you. Kind of looking ahead here, let's take a look at some more of the players they've got right now in the portal right now. Just looking at the top right there. So Dante Moore, obviously the quarterbacks. You had Tobias Merriweather, who's a great prospect coming out as a wide receiver. They're kind of crystal balling him to Washington. That would be a huge get for Daboll out there. You've got a lineman from Penn, Joey Slackman. I mean, we'll see what he does. Raymond Cottrell right now, dude. He's part of that class that I think A&M got that was like one of the best recruiting classes of all time.
Yep.
So it'll be interesting to see where he ends up going as well. I mean, Chris, who are you probably most excited about here in the portal?
Outside of the quarterbacks, I don't know. I do like the Cottrell kid a lot. You know me, I'm big on wide receivers. I would like to see Nebraska land a veteran wide receiver. We were talking about that before the show, Christian. I do, and I'll talk about Nebraska here real quick, but it's just, I like Coleman. I like Lloyd. I like some of the young talent we have here as far as the wide receiver position goes, Christian. But I think they need to bring in a guy, and I'll make this comparison like Trey Palmer. He came from LSU as a veteran guy. I want to see Nebraska land somebody like this kid Cottrell from A&M, or somebody up there that's maybe a number 2 on a really good team, and get us some veteran leadership, especially out at the wide receiver position. That hurt us this year. We're not a team that took a lot of shots. Now, I'm not going to blame that all on the quarterback. Some of that's on Satterfield and Rule, but when we did at the end of the year, Chris, you saw it with Chubba Purdy. We took some shots down the field. We had some big plays a couple times. Iowa, we had the big pass. Wisconsin, we had a couple of them. Some of that's on the wide receivers, though, too. And I'd like to see a veteran wide receiver get in here. Other than that, Chris Tyree, that'll be interesting to see where he goes. That's another kid I was thinking of earlier, too.
He's that running back, wide receiver, like that Debo Samuel almost kind of Swiss Army knife guy, right?
Yep. He's a good player. We watched him play earlier this season. I'm surprised he's leaving, but Notre Dame, I don't know what state Notre Dame's in right now anymore, honestly.
Keyshawn Blackstock going from Michigan State right there to Arkansas. Sam Pittman. You guys let them mess around, give him another year.
I know.
Hey, this is something else we need to talk about. What's going on with Notre Dame, dude?
That's my point. They have more people in the portal than I think any other team right now. I thought I read that the other day.
Yeah, I mean, we're going down this list of all the top people here, and I've got 2, 3, 4. I mean, they've got 4 or 5 players already in the portal. It's almost like somebody's getting fired. You know what I mean?
Marcus Freeman, as much as that's a great story, he's the one they hired. What was he? Their defensive coordinator when Brian Kelly was there, and then Kelly left LSU. Did they promote him within? I like the guy. I think the team loves him. It's just I don't know if he's cut out. Notre Dame, there's a lot of pressure. There is. At Notre Dame is one of those schools where they want to win. They don't play in a fucking conference, which pisses me off, but they want to win. And this year, I would say Notre Dame had a down year this year. I'll say that. I know it was better than last year, but Notre Dame wants to make playoffs. The 12 team will help next year, but Sam Hartman was supposed to lead him there, Christian. We talked about him. It just didn't happen. And I don't know. I don't know if that's because Marcus Freeman, maybe this is a little bit too big, but when you got players leaving like this, dude, that ain't good either, man. I don't know. I'd like to hear your thoughts, Christian, on why they got so many goddamn people in the portal already. I mean, they did go 9-3 this year.
I think that, last year, probably, a lot of these guys were on the roster last year there. They were originally probably recruited by Brian Kelly, right? And they wanted to see what would happen. Maybe they felt a little more optimistic with Marcus Freeman coming in. And then last year they lost to, who was it, Marshall and some other schools and stuff like that. They only had a couple losses there. But, this year too, I mean, they kind of had a down year. They had 3 losses too, right? So I think a lot of these kids know they're good enough to go to major programs and compete and possibly even try to go for a title. So why wouldn't they? Right? I mean, Notre Dame always recruits really, really well, and they develop really well, except for quarterbacks. And I feel like even with Sam Hartman this year, like they eventually at some point Notre Dame has to be able to develop a quarterback, right? I don't care whether it's a guy out of the portal or if it's somebody that is part of those recruiting classes that they get. You got to be able to develop somebody. You got to be able to start beating the Ohio States and the Clemsons of the world. They beat down Clemson. This was the year that you were going to beat Clemson. This was the year to do it, and they didn't even get that done.
No, they did beat USC this year, but USC wasn't obviously what they were supposed to be. The loss to Louisville, I thought that game wasn't even really close in the fourth quarter of that one too. I know, I just remember that because I lost some money on that game. But I'm with you, Christian. I don't know, man. It's interesting. Mike did say something about Michigan State. Michigan State's got a lot of people in the portal too. But
I think.
Go ahead. No.
Well, I was just going to say, I know Michigan State is they got a lot of people in the portal too, but I mean they're getting a new coach and obviously it's one of those things where Michigan State was one of the worst teams in the Big Ten this year. They were one of the worst teams. It was a bad year for them. So I think it's I don't know, man. For me, I just look at it and I say, Notre Dame. Like it surprises me you get that many people from Notre Dame, right? Because it's kind of like, historically speaking, where else are you going to transfer it to?
Right. No, I agree. I agree. Notre Dame's a surprise this year. Like I said, I don't know what's going on there. Like you said, somebody getting fired and we don't know about it, or what's going on over there. But yeah, it's good. This will be a crazy offseason to see where some of these guys go, though. I will say that there's a lot of good players in this portal already, so it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Florida fired 2 coaches on the defensive side of the ball. It wasn't Armstrong, was it? My God, I mean that. I mean, that Florida thing, right? That Florida thing to me is so weird. I feel like because the defense was pretty good. I felt like for most of the year they gave up some pieces, like the South Carolina game was a good one, but Kentucky game.
But they did play in some games though, right?
Yeah, they played in some games. The defensive line coach one to me is kind of astounding because I felt like I know it sounds crazy, but I felt like their defensive line they were banged up kind of after the Georgia game or before coming into that Georgia game. They got super banged up, and so they were really young up front. And I think that probably led to them getting exposed a little more. So I don't know. I mean, sometimes you get bad breaks. I don't like that. By the way, shout out to Mr. John Bacon out there getting the bacon last night. The Purple Rain and the Huskies.
Let's go. I'm assuming, John, you were a Huskies fan. Hats off to you guys last night, by the way. That was a hell of a football game. Washington's going to be a tough out in playoffs. I truly believe that the more and more I think about it. So, yeah, that was a big win last night. Good football game to watch if you're a college football fan.
You know, I know who Florida can go get to coach their defensive line right now. Go out and get Dan Mullen, dude.
You were waiting all day for swag because you didn't drop in Dan Mullen this week. I couldn't believe it. Usually he's spamming that every other comment. But yeah, go get Dan Mullen, your boy.
Florida should be announcing their defensive line coach today. John says they lived it. Go ahead. Said they lived in Washington since 1979. Nice, awesome. Very
That's
nice.
Awesome. Swag, I do have a question for you. Nebraska needs to play Florida this year. I wish they could just play each other, even though they both have 5 wins. See who would win that one between us. So, two programs that we really thought could win a game in the final month of November, end of October to get bowl eligible. So,
yeah, I will say this though, Chris. I mean, 2 different things. They had to face like what 3 top 25 teams. You guys just had to face the Big Ten West.
Yeah, which is dumpster fire. Yeah, I know we could. Yeah, don't even get me started. I know where you're going with this. Don't even get me fired up. But you are correct. Yeah, couldn't beat the Michigan States of the world and the Maryland and Iowa and Wisconsin. Unbelievable.
What speaking of that, I'm assuming Graham Mertz. This is a good segue here talking about Florida, but I'm assuming Graham Mertz coming back, right? Max Brown jumps in the portal. I'm assuming that's just because you got Lagway coming in, right? I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see, though, man. I really think it's going to be interesting to see what Florida does this year. I think if they can retain most of their offensive staff, the defense gets a little more shored up. It'll be interesting. I know I touched you about it, and I said, look, I think ultimately – this is the gotta-have-it year for Billy Napier. The schedule, I think, coming into the season is pretty brutal for them, if I've remembered it right.
Schedule's brutal. That's where I think Florida, I hate to say this, I don't think they make a bowl game next year just because of the schedule. They have one of the, I would say, top 5 toughest schedules next year. Like, it's brutal. Like, they had a tough end of the year. Their whole schedule next year is tough.
Yeah, looking at it here, will the Huskies be the favorites now after this weekend? Listen, here's the thing, right? We touched on this. I think Washington, they played a really good game yesterday, right? And I think Oregon was really, really slow. They looked just like the moment was way too big for them last night. And they finally figured out what was going on, but it was too late. They'd already dug themselves a hole, and by the time they started getting back into it, it was just a little bit too late. I think they'll match up really good against like a Michigan. That's another team that whenever the spotlight's put on them in the playoffs just folds, or if for whatever reason, if just absolute pandemonium went off this weekend and somehow both Michigan and Georgia were to lose and Washington got all the way up to number 1, and let's say they end up facing like a Texas, I think they match up pretty well. I think that, and not just because I'm a Georgia fan, do I say this, but I'm trying to look at it non-biasly, but if they had to play like a Georgia in the playoffs, a team that's had experience in the playoffs, they know they get better with bigger moments. I think that's a tough ask for Washington. I think they have really, depending on who they play, I think they have a really good shot at. I think they have a really good shot at winning in the first round, and I think that would be a huge compliment to the job that Dabor's done out there for him this year. I mean, hell of a turnaround for you guys. And if they win the whole damn thing, at least somebody with the dogs is going to win it, right? So I'm with it.
Yeah, I'll add. Like I said, I think this is my thing. I think Georgia wins today. I know that's going to piss off the Bama man, but I think Georgia's still the number one team in the country, personally. Just from watching Georgia play week in and week out. Michigan's going to win today. I don't think. I mean, is anybody betting on Iowa to win this game? I don't even think Iowa fans are. I mean, so I would have to assume that Michigan will be number 2. I would put Washington probably 3. If Florida State wins, they're probably 4. But I think Washington would have a chance against Michigan. I really do. I think Michigan hasn't played a team, if they end up playing Washington, that explosive. That's one thing about Washington, man. They could put up some points in a hurry with Penix and those wide receivers. So I do have a few questions about your guys' defense. That's where I think it'd be a tough matchup if they had to play like Georgia off the rip. But
yeah.
Like I said, hats off to Washington this year. By the way, Christian did pick Washington to win the Pac-12 this year, which was a pretty bold take because Pac-12 was loaded this year with talent. Yeah. USC, Oregon, hell, Oregon State had a good season this year too. So Utah, throw them in. They've won it the previous 2 years. So, but yeah, hats off, man.
Oh, yeah. We got Raphael. I think I said that right, hopefully. Salute, fellas. Salute, big guy. We appreciate it there.
Yeah. Got a few new people in today. I love it, man.
I love it too, Chris. Listen, we're excited to be able to talk college football with you guys. We try to do it year round. Here's the thing. Anytime a team says we need a new field goal kicker, Chris, I got to crack I cracked a Twisted Tea now, son. All right. I had to do something a little stronger than just a beer because that's 10 in the morning. Let's go, right? We got to be drinking to start talking about field goal kickers around here. Your specialty, your forte, as they like to say.
Shit. I kicked in high school because I had to. I just happened to be good at it. I was an all-state receiver, not a kicker. But yes, the kicking thing, I don't know. Nebraska's got a lot of other issues to address, in my opinion, before the kicker. I thought the kid did okay this year, though. I will say that. I know he was a freshman. I know he missed a few field goals, but goddamn, we got some other problems. We shouldn't be kicking field goals. Should be scoring touchdowns.
I agree with you. Alabama for the longest time had that same argument because that was the worst part of their team. They just needed a field goal kicker. But you guys need, I think, a lot more than just a field goal kicker. I mean, the field goal kicker to me is, above average. I mean, I would say a quarterback, left tackle, I would say like another wide receiver. You don't need a whole lot. I mean, I think you guys have 2 or 3 pretty good wide receivers out there that are going to develop and be okay as they go. But it's, I don't know, man. I'm just saying. Chris knows where I'm going with this. You bring back Tony White, which I think is a hell of a job on y'all's part.
Paid him, thank God.
Yeah, paid him. So Chris, we touched on it. Like, I think the defense. Chris seems to think the defense will probably take a step back a little bit this year. Not by much, but just enough, right? I think that they'll probably regress a little bit, but I think that overall you guys are still good. You're getting back most of that front 7. Now, the linebacker situation is going to be something interesting. But that's why you went out and you got a guy like MJ Sherman to come in and play from Georgia, right? He's going to step in and he's going to be just as good, I think, as Reimer, or Heinrich, and if not better. So
right. Yeah, I do. I think they'll take a little step back. I think it's just watching Nebraska's defense. It's like one year they're great, next year they're terrible. Then, I don't think that Nebraska's defense will be terrible next year. But I'm just saying with the addition of USC, Washington, Oregon, and UCLA, it's going to be tougher in the Big Ten now. All 4 of those teams can score, and they could score a lot more than Nebraska as far as this year went. So I just think it's going to be tougher. The biggest thing to me, and I think you guys would agree if you're a Nebraska fan, is that they really got to improve on offense. They got to take 2 or 3 steps forward, not 1. I talked about the 18 points per game, Christian. They need to be averaging 25, 26, 27 points a game if they want to compete next year.
I agree with you, Chris. I'll tell you what. You go be the kicker. I'll go be the punter. You can call me Fat Mac. You can call me Fat McAfee out here. Okay, let's go.
Uh, yeah, I could see you out there talking shit, 300-pound punter. That'll, that'll be, yeah. Like I said, I still like you as Iowa's quarterback body double. That's my
damn right.
I told my dad that, by the way, and he laughed his ass off for like 5 minutes. He's like, kind of does look like Christian out there.
Oh Jesus, dude! Our father-in-law sent me a picture. This is how you know. This is how you know the bulk has been going way too long. I feel like. My father-in-law said, I thought this was you. I had to do a double take. I stopped everything I was doing.
Oh, I know what
you're hold on. Yeah, I know exactly. You know damn well what I'm doing. And I don't know. I don't know whether I should have been like insulted or what. It's like, damn it.
Yeah. What is that guy's name? He's the one that died.
Brandon Burlsworth.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a sad story, but yeah. You guys kind of have similar glasses. I could see it.
Man, I was like, oh shit.
Hey, they're better than that. What was that? Your kicker, Rodrigo Blankenship?
Oh my god. I'm just glad he didn't say I look like this. You know what I mean? The Bubbles from Trailer Park Boys.
Yeah.
Oh shit. Oh man. Look, dude, we'll kind of get into here. John Paul Bacon says it's no random act. The top dogs of the Pac-12, the Huskies. Hey man, I love it. You know what I mean? Celebrate all weekend, celebrate all month. Great job. Hats off to Washington, the Purple Rain. Man, they did it. They did it. I mean, they did what I told Chris all year they would be doing. And then backtracked on as soon as I kind of saw that after the Oregon game. But they did a hell of a job, and they proved me right. A younger and more skinny version of me in the offseason. So I really respect that. Raphael says, okay, so I have a question for you guys. Do you think that Michael Penix is a future contender for the Heisman Trophy? With what he did yesterday, yeah, he's going to be in that conversation. Has to be, right?
I think he gets invited. I think the last 3 or 4 games, if you would have said like 3/4 of the way through the season, I would have gave him the trophy. I think it's going to be tough to take it away from Jalen Daniels from LSU. I truly believe that. Now, I think Penix is a better passer, but what Daniels did with his feet at LSU, and you guys are going to tell me, I know they lost 3 games, but Lamar Jackson did it with 3 losses. So did Robert Griffin III, I believe, at Baylor a few years ago. I probably, me personally, if I was a voter, Christian, I would probably lean Daniels. I think Penix should be there. I also think Bo Nix, especially he came on super hot at the end of the season. Last night, Washington actually did a pretty good job of keeping him contained, especially for the first half. I also, Christian, think if your boy today balls out against Alabama, I think he deserves an invite in Carson Beck. I know that sounds crazy, but I think Carson Beck has been the most consistent quarterback in the country almost this year. I mean, the guy throws for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns just every game.
Well, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You know what I mean? Not at all, Chris. I mean, I think it's like you said. I mean, he's up there. He certainly is up there. In that conversation. Here's the thing, right? We're going to take a look at this for a second here. This is the offensive stats here. Michael Penix, Bo Nix, Jaden Daniels, right? Pretty much. And then you start going down here. I think too many losses. Fuck no. And then you got Carson Beck, right? I mean, and it's tough, right? Because you look at some of these schools, and you're like, well, they have to throw, obviously, to stay relevant. So for me, when I'm looking at Michael Penix here, he leads the country as of right now in passing yards. And I mean, yeah, that's pretty much what it is. He's got 33 touchdowns on the year. That's the only thing I think that might hurt him, right? I mean, last night was a Heisman moment, though, for him. I felt
he played well.
You know what I mean? Because they always talk about like a Heisman moment. And I almost wonder, winning that Pac-12 championship game, he also has 3 rushing touchdowns to kind of add on top of that. So the kid's got 36 touchdowns, on the year. Jaden Daniels from LSU, he has 50 touchdowns, though, total.
And 5,000 yards accounted for by one human being, by the way. His stats are amazing because he's got over 1,200 yards rushing or something like that. But I'm with you. Penix, he definitely deserves to go. He outplayed Bo Nix this year. He beat him both times he played him, so I gotta lean Penix on that one. I just think Daniel's stats are so crazy. But I do think this will be an interesting Heisman. Like I said, if Penix wins it, I wouldn't be mad about it at all. He's had an amazing season this year.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you.
And he played well last night, really well.
I agree with you. Yeah. By the way, Corn, you know what I mean. Basically, yeah, I do owe that guy. I do owe him a custom jersey. Nebraska did not get anywhere near 10 wins this year. So, screenshot it, send it over to Chris, and then we'll get it from there.
Yeah. I wish you were right though, Christian. I wish you would have won that one. It would have been nice to win 9 or 10 games. We'd be playing Michigan today and getting beat by 50.
Yeah, running back such a tough one anymore. I feel as if Malik Neighbors, Odenize, Troy Franklin. I mean, you got some of these guys up here, which is crazy. You look at Marvin Harrison Jr., who's probably going to end up being one of the best receivers, and Luther Burden. They're 9th and 10th on this list right here.
Yeah, I think the Marvin Harrison thing, I think he's the best receiver as far as talent goes in the country. I do. But I think some of that's on Kyle McCord. I think if he would have been playing with like CJ Stroud again another year, holy shit. I think Harrison would have had like insane numbers. Malik Neighbors, by the way, had an awesome year this year. People want to laugh all you want about LSU, but if it wasn't for him and Daniels, I don't know if LSU would have won 4 games. Those guys connected a ton this year. He had some really good grabs. Odunze is goddamn good too last night. Seems like every time they throw him a ball, it's a 35-yard catch. Troy Franklin kind of got held in check last night, by the way. That was actually interesting. He was one of the guys I was watching pretty closely last night. But
yeah, I kept going to, what was it? Tez Johnson, I think, Bo Nix's brother. So, John, I mean, he pretty much agrees. One of those 3 that's on a 12-0 team. Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's kind of what the Heisman voters think sometimes too. You know what I mean? They look at who's on the best team, and sometimes it just depends on the given year. Sometimes they throw stats out, sometimes they don't.
I know. I have a problem with the Heisman though. It always seems to be the best player on the best team. That doesn't mean you're the best player in the country. Like I honestly think if I got in an argument the other day on one of the polls about Brock Bowers. I think Brock Bowers is one of the best players in the fucking country.
Oh yeah.
I do, without a doubt. Marvin Harrison Jr. is up there too. I do. It's just unfortunately they don't play quarterback.
Yeah, and they don't really, like you said, they don't really have control over a lot of things. And you got to think Brock Bowers for the last 3 years has been one of the most dominant players, and he had a walk-on the first year he was there. But that was basically Brock Bowers was Georgia's offense for a long time. And as a Georgia fan, it got to a point where you start saying, "Oh shit, he's hurt." You know what I mean? There goes our offense. But Kirby and Georgia, they've done a good job at kind of reloading and retooling so that they're not so dependent upon one person. And great kid, so shout out to them. Swag says Louisville beats FSU. That's exactly what I said. You know what I mean? To start the week off there. I think Chris, you picked Florida State. Are you fading that a little bit as we get into this game?
I'll tell you what. I haven't bet it yet. I'm going to, and I'm gonna. Fuck it. I'm sticking with my guns. I'm going with Florida State. I know they might be on their 3rd string quarterback. I don't love it. But I have questions about Louisville a little bit. The big thing for Florida State in this game today, though, real quick, they're going to have to be able to run the ball a little bit with Benson. I would like to see if it's Rodemaker out there at quarterback, going to have to get the ball to his playmakers and those wide receivers. Florida State's got a really good group of wide receivers there. So I know Christian's leaning the other way. I know more than anything, he wants Florida State to at least give up 30 points today, more than anything. So I hope this game is close. I do want that. And like I said, I wish I could see Jordan Travis play because I think Florida State would definitely be favored in that one. But here we are, man.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. By the way, if you guys want to call in, we'll put you on the stream. We'll probably do it for another 20 or so minutes and just see what you guys want to talk about. And then we'll go from there. By the way, thank you for subbing there, Raphael. We really appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
FSU by 2 points.
Yeah, I think that's the line too right now. I think if that's what you're talking about, Corn, I believe that is still the line. It is the line. Actually, it's down to 1.5 on my book, but if they rule out this kid, dude, like, do you favor Louisville then?
I listen. I think even if they play him, I mean, here's the thing, right? He hasn't practiced like really at all week. So I mean, even if they play him, you know what I mean, and he's been very limited in practice. He hasn't been a full participant all week in practice. Like, that's very tough, especially if you haven't been the guy all year long. You've gotten 2 weeks where they've kind of been really, I mean, going into that was it North Alabama game, he really wasn't, like, he was going to play, but he wasn't, like, getting reps like a starter. So we got, like, 1 real week, I feel like, going into, going into Florida. Yeah, going into Florida to kind of take the reps with the ones, kind of get on board with that, and then he pretty much goes out, plays one game, and then now here we are. He hasn't practiced, so he's had one full week as a starter.
True. That's true.
So that's where I think, like, coming into this game, your conference championship game, say whatever you want to about Louisville, but that's where I think, Florida State at times this year, even with Jordan Travis, they've been a little slow on offense, right? They've had their stretches. I think ultimately they get explosive and they figure out what they're doing. But especially with Tate Rodemaker, it seems like the first half they're just figuring out what they're doing. Now they get it rolling down the stretch. I don't think, again, that you want to try to do that playing a team like Louisville that I think could ultimately be pretty explosive on any given week. So we'll see. Like I said, we'll see what ends up happening with him.
Yeah, it should be a really good game either way, though. I think this is the night game tonight too, so it should be a good one. Christian Hunt, I got a question. And we haven't addressed it much today, and I'm surprised because I know what you're trying to do over there. You took your shots at my Huskers here a little bit. I'm just fucking with you. You haven't talked about this game. And this is what I was waiting for because your Bulldogs, I believe, are the only team, by the way, to win 12 or more games in 3 straight seasons ever to do so. Mm-hmm. Something like that, 12-0 or some crazy stat like that. You guys win today. You're going to the playoffs for the third straight year, have a chance to win 3 in a row, which hasn't been done since like the 30s.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts today, man? Are you still leaning the Bulldogs? I know you probably bet the whole Bama money line today.
1,000%. Yep. Threw $100. Threw $100 on Bama beating my Dogs today. Only because if Bama wins, I win, right? Because I'm gonna win some money. But if they lose, well, I lost $100. Oh well, it sucks. Yeah. It is what it is. But I mean, betting wise, I bet Bama. But heart wise, I got to go with Georgia. A lot of people have this game as a toss-up game. I kind of agree with them. I think no matter what you're looking at, it's kind of like that Auburn game, right? It doesn't matter how good Bama is and how bad Auburn is, especially coming into that game they played last week. Like, just weird shit happens when Georgia and Bama play each other. I think it's going to be a close game. I think you're going to have to score well into the 30s for whoever's going to end up winning it. It's going to be a fun game, too. To me, it's going to be a fun game to watch and see what happens in this one. I mean, look, the biggest question, by the way, Jace McClellan, Alabama's running back that they've leaned on for a lot of the year, he's got almost 800. He's got over 800 yards, 6 touchdowns. He's hurt.
Yes.
So now that's one component that Georgia's going to be able to probably take advantage of. The other thing we've seen with Georgia is Georgia and Bama, and this is why I think it might be close. It seems like the bigger the moment, the bigger the game, the better they play.
Yeah, I agree with you to a certain extent. I think this is going to be a close game for most of the game. I think Georgia pulls away at the end of this one. I've watched Georgia almost every week, and I'm not the resident Georgia fan on this channel, but I love Kirby Smart. I love what Georgia does down there. I just think they're the better team. I just do overall on both sides of the ball. I know Bama is really come on strong the last second half of the season from where they were to start the year with the loss to Texas, that ugly game against South Florida, whoever the hell it was. I can't. I already took Georgia money line today. I'm not going to stray away from it. I just think Georgia's the better team. I do think this one is close for a couple quarters, but I have Georgia by about a touchdown here. I do. I just think so. I think if they can contain Milroe, that's probably the most important player in this game for both teams, honestly. Like, he is pretty much going to be Alabama's offense today. He's going to probably hit a couple deep shots. He does throw a good deep ball. But if you guys can, contain him from running around and making plays that way, I just don't see how Georgia can lose this game. I truly don't.
I think it'll be kind of, again, it's going to have to be like what he's done almost all year. You know what I mean? And kind of like how Georgia got, beat up at certain points when they play Bama with Tua, Jalen Hurts and all those kind of guys. I think they're going to have to. Here's the thing. Whenever you play a team like Alabama, you have to contain. You have to contain. You have to hold down your gap. If you lose contain, and Jalen Milroe, we saw it, going back to hell, Tua, Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow did it to Georgia in the SEC championship game a couple years ago. Jaden Daniels did it to us. You have to be able to hold contain with these guys. If you let them get out of the pocket and extend and make time, Guys will get open. It's just it's part of it. If you give them 8 seconds and you lose contain, bad things generally happen, right? And I've seen it happen way too often with Nick Saban and these Bama teams. Hell, we watched it happen last week with a terrible Auburn team that had 9 guys in the end zone, and they still hit a Hail Mary on 4th and 31.
I agree. I'm with you, man. You're right. And I think that'll be one of the biggest keys of the game. I truly believe that. I just, like I said, I'm not here to stroke off your dogs, but I truly think that Georgia to me, man, is they've just been so consistent. They've gotten better week after week after week. Now throw the Georgia Tech game out of the window. I don't really look too much into that one last week, but
yeah,
they're just hot, dude. And I think Bama will hang around, dude. It's just the way this is. Kirby Smart, coached under Saban. I mean, these guys know each other. These teams are kind of similarly built in a way. Give me Georgia today, baby. Give me Georgia.
I like it, dude. I like it. Now, are you going to be watching this game, or are you going to be watching a little SMU Tulane? You know what I mean? Which one are you going to really be watching, Chris? That's the real question.
Well, the real question is here, Christian, both. To answer your question, I will put it on one of these 4 monitors over here, and I will be paying attention. I'm also taking Tulane into 3 points today. I believe somebody on this channel was pretty high in Tulane this year again, and that would have been you, Christian.
Yeah.
You had, if I'm not mistaken, you picked him to beat Ole Miss this year, and if Bucket Pratt would have been playing,
Michael Pratt. If he would have played in that game, dude, not a question. The final score was way worse than what that game really was. I think it was like 2 minutes left to go in the 4th quarter, and it was like a field goal game maybe. It was in 7 points, and then Tulane just kept turning the ball over. And so it ended up looking a lot worse. Kind of like, ironically, I think, like what LSU did to Missouri in that game where they played, where it was back and forth, back and forth. But yeah, Michael Pratt plays in that game. I don't even think it's particularly close. I mean, they had a backup quarterback in there who didn't look bad, but just you could tell there was a noticeable drop off.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And like I said, I'll be watching a little bit of that game. SMU has got a pretty explosive offense this year, though. I will say that they do put up some points. Not that I know a lot of you guys don't care about SMU playing Tulane today, but that Tulane's not a bad football team. They're really not. Last year they beat USC in a bowl game. Like I said, they'll be playing probably, if they win this one, they'll definitely be playing in a New Year's Six bowl, I would assume. So,
yeah. I mean, SMU, Chris, I mean, hats off to them, dude. I mean, Pony Express 2.0. Not really Pony Express, you know what I mean? They're doing it a different way than they did back when they had Eric Dickerson and James Craig and all those guys. And they got the death penalty. But, man, shout out to that program. I mean, they're coming in this game 10-2. Dogs. They're 8-0 in conference play. That's gonna. I think this is gonna be a sneakily good game. Right now, I think all the. Really, are they?
Isn't that crazy what you're looking at right there? The spread.
Am I seeing? I'm seeing that right. They're put all the money's on SMU.
Yeah. It's weird that this is ESPN and that's just their predictor thing. But that many people. I mean, the percentage of people think that SMU is going to roll in this game. Fucking, I'm not kidding right here. Tulane is favored by a field goal right now. That's a crazy deal. Betting.
So, yeah, that's in that game, it's kind of like the Oregon game we watched, right? Where most people thought, Oregon, Washington, everyone thought Oregon was going to win, but Washington, was a higher ranked team. I think the money was coming in on Oregon, and it was like when that happens, there is no true upset then, right? Like that just means it's a pick 'em basically.
Pretty much. That's a weird deal that ESPN has them favored. I mean, 75% chance of winning that game. That's crazy for being a 3-point dog in the betting world. That's nuts. Here's your favorite game of the day, though, right here.
Oh, this is the one right here. As as a lot of Texas fans wanted to remind us here, no way the Longhorns are going to lose this one.
Yeah.
Well, it's what conference is this, Chris?
Oh, the Big 12, where anybody can win on any given week.
Any given week. Yeah, give me Oklahoma State in this one, Chris. I'm going to shout it from the rooftops. I'll probably be wrong, but I don't care. You know what I mean? We're here for the chaos, right? We're here for the chaos. To me, this is what I see. If you had a crystal ball in front of you, it's the most Texas thing ever to happen, where they would lose this game because it's the Big 12 championship. Oklahoma State wins it, knocks Texas obviously way out of the playoffs. Don't even have to worry about anybody else losing or winning. And then Quinn Ewers probably would come back in that scenario, right? I think here's the thing. If Texas wins this game, somehow they get into the playoffs. There's a lot has to go right for Texas for them to get into the playoffs.
Yeah, Florida State needs to lose.
Florida State needs to lose, and then Georgia needs to win. right?
Okay. I'm going to stop you right here on something. If I don't think there's any way that Bama gets in unless like something crazy happens. But then you got to throw out Ohio State too. We talked about this a little bit the other day, Christian, with these 1-loss teams.
Yeah.
Would right now, would you put Bama ahead of Ohio State right now if you had to do a ranking just currently? Would you put Ohio State ahead of Bama right now before these games are played?
Right now, I'd put Ohio State ahead of Bama.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Because, I mean, Ohio State's only loss was to Michigan, who's currently undefeated, and will,
Right.
you know what I mean? It's just currently undefeated right now.
Yes.
Whereas Texas's only loss was to Oklahoma, who has faded down the stretch, I feel like.
Yeah.
So,
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Just looking at, yeah. Yeah, so I guess you're right. Like, I guess, and that's the case here, right? Like, does the Big 12 champion Texas Longhorns, would they get in over, you know what I mean, Ohio State, right? Because, like, Ohio State's worst loss was to Michigan, but their best wins were against, like, Notre Dame and Penn State. Whereas, like, Texas, you know what I mean? Like, Texas's best win was against Bama, but if Bama gets beat by Georgia, then, you know what I mean? Like, and obviously, you're kind of throwing a lot of stuff in there. I don't know.
I think if Florida State would happen to lose, Michigan wins today, Georgia wins, I think Texas would get in over Ohio State. I think because they're a conference champion. I just do.
Yeah.
I know that's going to piss people off. And like I said, who the hell am I? I mean, and that might not even happen. Florida State could win today. Georgia could win. Michigan could win. And Texas doesn't get in. You know what I mean? And you got what? Shit, I don't know if there's ever been 4 undefeated teams in the playoff before. I'm almost certain of that. That could happen today if the favorites win. That's crazy. I don't think that's ever happened where 4 undefeated teams were in the playoff.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's pretty nuts.
Yeah, Daniel says he put Alabama ahead of Ohio State, who didn't play in the conference championship game. I wouldn't, just because, like, Ohio State can't control that. You know what I mean? If you put Ohio State in the West, I mean, then they would easily be in. You know what I mean? They would be in this conference championship game.
That's what needs to happen. Thank God they're getting rid of divisions, because I would rather watch Michigan play Ohio State today for all the marbles versus the last game of the season on the same side of the conference.
And I can't believe I just stood up for Ohio State.
Yeah, what's wrong with you?
Jesus.
Yeah, gotta get out of here, man. Standing up for the Buckeyes.
It's because I had one of those twisted tees, dude. My mind's all twisted. Talking about field goal kickers and such.
Yeah. Chode twisting. Yeah. Whatever. Anyway.
Oh.
Yeah, that's
well, guys, we're coming up on 10:30 over here. Chris is out here to, you know what I mean, getting ready to get real excited, you know, win some money, you know.
Yes.
He's got to go 5 for 5 today.
I know. And by the way, we did talk about Oklahoma, Texas. I'm taking Texas. I already put the money down. 2 touchdown favorite today. Bank it.
Oklahoma versus Texas, huh?
Yep. Give me Texas by 2 touchdowns. They're favored by 14 right now, or 14.5 or something. I'm taking Texas in the points today. I know me and you we're going against each other today a little bit, Christian. So it's gonna be interesting.
You taking a time machine all the way back to like week 5 or 6 when they played Oklahoma?
No, man. I'm telling you, what are you sleeping on Texas so much for right now, man?
Because you said Oklahoma versus Texas.
Oh, I mean, you meant Oklahoma State.
I know what you meant. They don't know what you meant, though. By God, it's kind of like when you. Yeah, we'll touch a little more on the who would you rather with JJ McCarthy next week, though.
Get me fired up about the cheaters. Let's go. God damn it, I needed that today. Thank you.
Hey. Calm down over there, right? They're the cheaters, we're the beaters. I don't know what the hell that means, but we're figuring it out as we go. So, well, guys, I think we're going to be back on it again on Wednesday. We're going to have some more, you know what I mean, breakdown content styles coming out for you over the next couple days. So we'll be back again on Wednesday around 5:30, 6 o'clock Central Time. So be there or be square for our live show. We'll do more call and stuff for you guys then. By the way, when we do it, we'll obviously just drop the link there and we'll get rocking and rolling. We'd love to hear from you guys. Be sure to comment. Obviously, if you're not subscribed already, smash the subscribe button. I'll throw it back to Chris to kind of sign us out here.
Yeah, Christian did a good job there, guys. Truly appreciate the support. We don't have much left of the college football season. It's crazy. Went by pretty quickly. Like I said, I do appreciate all the support you guys dropping in. We love hearing about other people's teams. This just isn't a Georgia or Nebraska channel, by the way, as you guys probably figured out. This is a college football channel. I love, especially when you're a degenerate like me and my team sucks every year. I'm not like Christian where we get to compete for playoffs. I love sitting around listening to you guys tell me why, for example, the Huskies are the number 1 team in the country. I love that stuff, man. So I know Christian does too. So we'll sign out here, guys. Appreciate it. We'll see you soon.